The Millionaire's twins couldn't sleep until the humble housekeeper made a shocking move. The moon hung heavy in the night sky, casting ghostly shadows over the sprawling Hansford mansion. Inside, echoes of restless footsteps shuffled in the grand hallways, where the past whispered cruelly to two unsettled souls. Evie and Leo, heirs to a fortune that towered over the city, were prisoners of their own sleepless minds. Nights bled into mornings under the weight of nightmares that clawed at their sanity. Memories of their mother's tragic death twisting like shadows around them. Each night brought a fresh wave of pain, gripping their chests tightly, making it hard to breathe. The flashes were vivid, her laughter, the light in her eyes, suddenly snuffed out, and then the darkness swept in, bringing with it phantoms of regret. In the dimness of their opulent rooms, where silk curtains bathed them in cold luxury, they fought with their demons while the city shimmered beautifully below, blissfully unaware of the turmoil within the mansion. It was Clara, their devoted housekeeper, who was the guardian of their family's secrets. Her gentle presence was like a tether to the outside world, a reminder of warmth in their cold, gilded cage. She moved silently through the halls, blending into the wallpaper, yet always aware. Friends, family. She was a mix of both to the twins, always equipping them with kindness cooked into hearty meals, or a listening ear when the world outside felt too heavy. But tonight felt different. The air crackled with tension, and Clara's usually calm demeanor faltered as she prepared the twins' evening tea. The creaking floorboards under her feet seemed to echo the unspoken burdens of the past. Dropping a sugar cube, she paused to gather her thoughts. The twins sensed a shift, the unsteady flow of secrets ready to spill. "Evie, Leo," she began, her voice tremulous yet steeped in resolve. "There's something about your mother, something I've held back." Their hearts lurched as icy dread washed over them. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as if the walls were closing in. Shock rippled through them. An unthinkable declaration was about to shatter their stained glass perceptions of family. As Clara recounted details, laced with sorrow and betrayal, something in Evie twisted painfully. What they thought was a tragedy felt like a lie cloaked in the fog of memories. Whispers of forbidden love and hidden alliances began to unfurl like dark petals, revealing the frayed edges of their family tree. Leo's knuckles turned white around the ornate teacup. The truth of their mother's hidden life fell like ashen confetti in their laps. With every word, long-held bonds of trust began to fray, revealing scars they never knew existed. Could they really face the monster lurking beneath their perfect facade? Just as they braced for the next revelation, a chilling silence enveloped the room, punctuated by the soft ticking of an ancient clock. The unease morphed into questions, concerns flickering in their eyes. Would understanding the truth bring them closer, or unravel them entirely? The mansion sighed around them, heavy with unsaid fears and buried memories. As Clara stepped from the shadows, her voice steady, it was clear that nothing was as it seemed within their opulent lifestyle. Each of the twins felt the tremors of a dizzying descent into a world of revelations that could either bind them together or tear them apart forever. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The mansion sighed around them, heavy with unsaid fears and buried memories. As Clara stepped from the shadows, her voice steady, it was clear that nothing was as it seemed within their opulent lifestyle. Each of the twins felt the tremors of a dizzying descent into a world of revelations that could either bind them together or tear them apart forever. Just then a rattling sound echoed through the grand hall. Clara halted mid-sentence, eyes wide, a pallor sweeping over her face. Evie and Leo exchanged worried glances, the air thickening with dread. Almost instinctively, they followed Clara's gaze toward the large, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. It rattled again, seemingly at odds with the stillness submerging the room. Before anyone could question the noise, the glass shimmered, and in an instant, it rippled like water. A moment later, a shadow flickered behind the reflection. And then, without warning, a figure crashed through the mirror, stumbling into their world with a gasp. "What the?" Leo's breath hitched, his heartbeat hammering like thunder in his ears. It was a woman, drenched in mystery and chaos. Her clothes clung to her like wet sheets, and her eyes darted as if they could not comprehend the reality around her. Clara stepped back, her shock turning to dread. "Who are you?" Evie demanded, her voice trembling between fear and curiosity. The woman opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she reached for Clara, desperation etched across her face. "Help me! You know everything!" Clara's expression hardened. "I don't know you." "Yes, you do," the woman shrieked, a pitch rising that sent chills racing down Evie's spine. I'm your sister." The room fell silent, the weight of the declaration hanging heavier than any dark secret. "A sister?" Evie and Leo stared in disbelief. Their minds raced, twisting memories and family secrets into a chaotic knot. "That's impossible. We have no sister." Leo's voice cracked, confusion morphing into a cacophony of panic. "I've been hidden away," the woman gasped, her breath hitching as she sank to her knees. "The truth about our mother. It was all a lie. The accident. It was no accident." Clara's features hardened, shadows crossing her face. "You're lying. This isn't true." The woman's eyes glistened with fear and pain. "You have to believe me. The family, there's so much more than you think. I'm the reason she died. And they, what do you mean?" Evie interjected, her heart hammering against her ribs. But before the woman could respond, the air shifted. Again, a crack sounded, growing louder, reverberating through the mansion's core. Each tick of the ancient clock jumped in rhythm with the girl's rising heartbeats. The sound swelled into chaos as doors slammed closed, a tempest of wind swirling around them. "Run!" Clara shouted, urgency slicing through the confusion. None of them moved. They stood frozen, gripped by the whirlwind of truths now spilling into reality like freshly poured ink. The woman shivered, glancing back at the mirror now crackling with energy, as if it wanted to reclaim her. But a deep instinct pulled at Evie. Could it really be true? A sister hidden, a life unspoken? "Tell us everything," Leo shouted over the furious wind, desperation tugging at his voice. But the woman could only shake her head, looking half regretful, half fearful. "It's too late for that now. The truth you seek leads down paths you may not wish to tread." And with that, as the mansion screamed with the storm's anguish, the very walls seemed to tremble, hiding secrets they were never meant to keep. What had they unleashed? What more lay beneath the surface, lurking in shadows both old and new? The room quaked with new energy, swirling chaos around them. Evie felt the pull of fear weaving through her veins, while Leo's breaths came in quick bursts. The woman knelt before them, trembling, a living ghost of a secret long buried. Was she truly their sister? So much uncertainty filled the air, but before they could process, the mirror behind her flickered once more. Clara stepped back, eyes darting between the glass and the woman. "This isn't how it's supposed to happen. You shouldn't be here." Her voice shook. A sudden, wild gust of wind tore through the room, ripping at the curtains like claws. The glass moaned, cracking along its edges, ice forming where warmth had once prevailed. "Run!" Clara shouted again. And at that moment, the woman sprang to her feet, her hands outstretched. "I don't want to go back," she yelled, her voice a haunting echo. "What do you mean? You can't just—" Evie started. But the words died in her throat as the mirror glowed a glaring white, almost blinding them. It trembled violently, as if caught in a battle of forces unseen. Then, with a loud crashing sound, the mirror shattered. Glass exploded into 1,000 shards, scattering across the floor like fallen stars. A rush of cold air swept through the mansion, extinguishing their candles and plunging them into darkness. No one spoke. The room felt alive, its heartbeat quickening. The twins huddled closer, clinging to one another. They could barely see as Clara turned to the woman, her features stark against the shadows. "If you're telling the truth, then you hold the key to everything," she said, her tone shifting from fear to urgency. "But if you're lying—" Leo stepped forward, heart racing. "We need to know." "What do you mean by hidden? Why were you kept away?" The woman looked at him, her expression shifting to one of desperation. "Because your mother, she did terrible things to protect you. I'm the product of her mistakes, of a life that should never have been. I'm not safe, none of you are." "What are you talking about?" Evie's voice was nearly a whisper, fear creeping back in. Just then, the lights flickered back on, casting an eerie glow across the room. But the warmth they had known felt distant. Clara's face paled, and her expression shifted, tightening into something stormy and unfamiliar. "You think this is about your mother? About family? You don't understand." All of a sudden, the woman's eyes met Clara's, and the air crackled as if an electric line had sparked. The tension swelled, thick enough to choke. "You," the woman gasped, realizing something deep, profound. "You're the reason I was hidden." Clara's calm facade shattered. "You don't know what you're saying." Her voice was laced with anger. But the woman pressed on. "You were the one who pushed her to do it. You were the one who—" Before she could finish, out of nowhere, a scream fractured the night. It came from outside. Echoing through the halls, Clara turned sharply, then back to the twins. "Lock the doors," she ordered, urgency overtaking her fear. The sound of footsteps thundered toward them, urgent and frantic. "Clara!" a familiar voice shouted, cutting through the chaos. It was Jackson, their late mother's brother, their only living family outside the mansion. His voice was strained, desperate. "You have to come with me, now." They all froze. Leo's heart plummeted. What was happening? This was far from over, and whatever lay outside threatened to tear apart the very fabric of their foundation. Evie's mind raced. "What do you know? What's out there?" she yelled, panic tightening her throat. But no answer came. The door slammed open, wind howling in as dark shadows spilled into the room. And in that blinding moment, with Clara's face twisted in horror and the woman's desperate plea hanging in the air, everything they thought was true began to fray at the edges. What lay beyond the threshold? Secrets, danger. They were on the brink of a revelation, and the world around them began to spin. The shouting echoed off the walls like a thunderclap. Evie's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage as she clutched Leo's arm. Clara's eyes widened, filled with a mix of fear and determination. In the doorway, Jackson stood, breathless, his face pale and frantic. "Clara," he yelled, cutting through the tension like a knife. "You can't stay here. It's not safe." "What's happening?" Leo gasped. But Jackson didn't answer. He was trembling, looking over his shoulder as if expecting something to burst in after him. "We need to go, now," Jackson urged, glancing around the room as if the walls themselves might betray their secrets. And then it happened. A loud crash came from the far end of the hallway, splintering the charged atmosphere. The floor shook slightly as heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by grotesque whispers filling the air like smoke. The shadows twisted, creeping into the room, pulling the warmth away with them. Evie felt an icy grip around her heart. "What is that?" Evie shouted, fear slicing through her voice. But Jackson's face twisted with an emotion they couldn't quite place. Was it anger or desperation? "You don't understand. They're coming for her." He pointed at the woman, still trembling on the floor. "Who's they?" Leo snapped, eyes darting between them. Then the woman, a stranger, or was she, stood tall, an ember of defiance igniting in her features. "If they know I'm here, I'm not the only one in danger. They'll come for you too," she said. And there was a weight in her voice, a knowing. "Come for me?" Clara's expression darkened, her gaze hardening like glass. You're the one who broke into our lives." "Enough," Jackson barked, the crack in his voice echoing off the walls, surprising even him. "We can't argue here. We need to." "Take her back." Clara's voice pulsed with raw energy, as if her very life depended on it. "You're not taking her anywhere, Jackson. You don't get to decide this." Their argument hung in the air, thick and suffocating, while Evie's pulse quickened with confusion. Clara and Jackson had shared the same tight-knit family history. If Clara's wrath was directed at him, that could only mean. Suddenly, a loud, vicious growl ripped through the hall, and shadows swirled. It wasn't just the wind. Someone was coming closer. The hairs on Evie's neck bristled. In a blinding flash, a creature burst through the doorway. It was a hulking figure, dark fur glistening under the flickering lights. A guttural snarl bubbled up from its throat, and it lunged towards them, eyes wild and feral. "No!" Clara screamed, but the raw emotion didn't come solely from her voice. Evie and Leo felt it too, echoed in their chests. As chaos erupted, Jackson sprang forward in a blaze of instinct, shielding the woman. "Get back!" he shouted. But in that moment, as the creature's claws slashed through the air, something shifted in his demeanor. Time seemed to stretch, and Evie was hit with a realization that crushed her breath. A flash of recognition. Jackson wasn't just their uncle. He was something more. The flicker of his eyes warned that he too was hiding, locked in a world they'd never known. "Jackson!" she called out, panic breaking her voice. "You're—" But before she could finish, the creature lunged, and Jackson transformed right before their eyes. Muscles rippled beneath his skin, bones cracking in a sickening symphony as he fought against the beast, morphing into something half-human, half-monster, an expression of twisted power and primal instinct. The room fell into chaos. "Run!" Leo screamed, but Evie stood frozen, torn between the horror unfolding and the questions racing through her mind. Was this family they had trusted battling against each other? The secrets buried deep were clawing their way to the surface. As they stumbled backward toward the mirror, shards of glass still glinting off the floor, they realized the truth was far darker than they could ever have imagined. Secrets had teeth, and they were about to bite. "Why didn't you tell us?" Evie screamed at Jackson, who now wrestled the beast in a fierce struggle, but there was no answer. Was this the truth they sought, or had they opened a door that led to a nightmare that would consume them all? The darkness closed in as they retreated. What would they uncover if they ran too far? Despair loomed larger than ever. Evie pressed her back to the wall, heart racing. She had to know. The chaos swirled around them like a sudden storm. Evie pressed her back against the cold, hard wall, feeling the pulse of fear racing through her veins. Leo was at her side, eyes wide and breathless. In front of them, Jackson wrestled with the beast, muscles coiling and ripping like a battle between man and monster. The air crackled, every heartbeat amplifying the tension. "What do we do?" Leo gasped. But Evie was too spellbound by the fight unfolding before them. The wild strength, the rage in Jackson's eyes. In a single moment, all she could feel was the dread creeping in, cold as ice. Then, without warning, the creature's claws swiped at Jackson. He dodged just in time, landing heavily against the wall. And that's when it happened. A blinding flash emanated from him, swallowing the room in a dizzying light. Evie shielded her eyes. Everything felt surreal. Time stretched, and for a moment, the world hung in utter silence. She caught glimpses of shadow and light swirling together, twisting the reality she understood. And then, whack! When she opened her eyes, it wasn't just Jackson pacing on two legs anymore. A different figure stood in his place, towering and fierce. A woman, an exact mirror of the woman from the mirror. The room fell into a stunned silence. "Surprise!" the new woman smirked, her eyes glinting with mischievous defiance. "You didn't think it was just him, did you?" Evie's heart dropped into the pit of her stomach. What was happening? This wasn't just chaos. This was a cataclysm of secrets bombarding their fragile world. "Who are you?" she shouted, feeling the walls press in, suffocating her. "The real question is, Why are you still standing here? The woman retorted. Her voice was smooth, dangerous. This is where it all ends. Or begins. What? Leo stammered, confusion painting his features. Before any of them could react, a gust of wind blew through the room, its chill creeping into their bones. The creature and Jackson, the other woman, whoever she was, they were intertwined in a fierce dance of shadows, twisting to and fro. The mirror on the wall shimmered again, as if it too was alive. Stop, Clara cried, but it fell on deaf ears. No one was listening anymore, lost in the whirlwind of supernatural revelations crashing around them. Why have you come? Clara's voice quivered. You're not supposed to be here. The mirror flickered more violently, and suddenly, the glass cracked along its surface, revealing visions behind. Images of a family shattered by lies, tangled in darkness, seeping through the cracks. Evie's breath hitched. Those weren't just images. They were moments, memories of warmth, twisted into something grotesque. No, Jackson bellowed, fist flying toward the mirror. But before he could touch it, a loud, deafening crack echoed, exploding the remaining shards of glass into the air like fiery rain. And in the heart of that chaos, something broke free. A voice, low and hissing, wormed its way into Evie's mind. You have no idea who you truly are, or what your blood holds. Heat pulsed in Evie's chest as the words sank in, burning bright. What do you mean? The woman laughed, a chilling sound that echoed like ice clinking in a glass. You think you're just the children of a millionaire? That you didn't inherit anything more? Oh my dear, you have more than just wealth. You're entwined in the web. You're destined for something dark. As Clara's face fell, shock racing through her features, Evie's world twisted into a dark blur. This was no longer just about family secrets. This was a fight for survival, a battle against her very own lineage. As the room spun and crackled with energy, Evie realized something profound. While she fought to understand what was happening, she was also questioning everything she'd ever known. That flicker of truth, their family origins, deeply buried for years, could either save them or lead them to doom. With fear clawing at her throat, she yelled into the fray. If we're entangled in this web, then free us. Tell us the truth. But the woman only smirked again, her eyes, dark pools of mystery. You're far from ready, but perhaps the heart of your lineage will soon wake. You may want to prepare for what follows. As the tension twisted and wrapped around them all, Evie felt reality teetering on a knife's edge. Would they survive the aftermath of the truth? Or would they become part of the darkness that had haunted them all along? As the dust settled from the shattering glass, a chilling murmur of chaos stirred outside. The nightmare was just beginning. What lay ahead, waiting to ensnare them? The dust settled slowly, clinging to the air like the unresolved tension between them all. Evie's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage as she tried to process the chaotic scene before her. The woman, their potential sister, stood, radiant yet terrifying, while Jackson wrestled something inside himself, duality flickering in his eyes. Just as the whirlpool of emotions threatened to pull her under, a loud crash echoed from the hall. The wooden doors flew open, and a group of silhouettes flooded in, silhouetted against the light. They were cloaked in dark fabric, faces shadowed. Evie squinted, her instincts screaming danger. Get out, Jackson shouted, still grappling with the creature, who looked more like a twisted version of himself. The figures advanced, their movements fluid and unnerving. An icy chill coursed through the room, sending a shiver down Evie's spine. Stop, one of the figures yelled, lifting a hand. The voice was command. And in that split moment, Evie recognized the speaker. The sharp chin and piercing blue eyes belonged to someone she'd never thought she'd see again. Mom? She whispered, hope and disbelief battling in her chest. But Clara's face twisted, horror etched in her features. No, it can't be, she muttered, stepping back as though pushed by an invisible force. The shadows seemed to stretch toward this woman. Evie's mother was somehow back, alive but shrouded in mystery. "I'm here to finish what I started," the woman said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "And the truth must come out." Leo grabbed Evie's hand, squeezing tight enough to ground her back in reality. "It can't be her. It can't," he choked out, color draining from his face. "Your family is tearing itself apart," the mirrored version of Evie's mother continued, eyes flickering between each person in the room. "And you've opened a door, my dear Evie, that can't be closed." With those words, the tension reached a breaking point. The air vibrated with unspent rage and despair. Then, without warning, something spectacular and horrifying happened. The beast, watching Jackson like prey, let out a jagged roar. It wriggled free from the hold of the battle, lunging straight for the phantom mother. Before Evie could scream, Jackson let out an anguished howl, his body shifting again. A fierce battle started, a brutal clash between identities. As he morphed once more, not to hide, but to reclaim. Now, with tawny fur bristling and wild eyes blazing, he fought not just for survival, but for clarity in a mess of lies. "Mom!" Evie shouted, the disbelief morphing into desperation. Was this truly a second chance? What did she mean about finishing? But the creature didn't care. It pounced, claws outstretched. The moment hung in the air, heavy with possibility and fear. And then, just as the beast seemed ready to rend the figure of their mother, Clara yelled, "No! Stop this madness!" A blinding light erupted around her, illuminating the dark shadows. As the force enveloped them, the ground beneath shook violently. The walls of the mansion creaked, groaning as though protesting against the unleashed energy of buried secrets. Evie felt her breath catch in her throat, a sudden realization hitting her. Maybe Clara was not who she thought either. "Clara?" Evie's voice wavered, confusion swirling in her gut. "What are you hiding?" But before an answer could come, the light erupted, blinding them all. Time fell away, shapes morphed, the room spun, colors bled together, and then as suddenly as it began, an ear-splitting crack silenced everything. When the light faded, Evie found herself not in the grand hall anymore, but a swirling tunnel, pulsating with shadows and whispers. Everything felt alive, moving like a living creature. "Welcome," a voice echoed all around them. It was layered, many voices blending into one. 1,000 echoes, each one laced with familiarity and fear. "Welcome to your legacy." And with that they were thrust into darkness, a chasm of truth that threatened to swallow them whole. Where were they? What kind of nightmare had they stepped into? Everything they thought they knew was unraveling, and the only certainty left was the electricity in the air, the promise of truths emerging and identities shattering. What awaited them in this new reality? They had unwittingly become players in a fate they couldn't control, and as hope flickered dim, each heartbeat echoed louder with a single chilling question. Was anything truly what it seemed? The echoes of chaos faded into a haunting silence, and Evie felt the energy around her shift. The shadows pressed in closer, the swirling tunnel, morphing like a living thing, wrapping its tendrils around her. Her heart raced, each beat a thunderous reminder of how far they had fallen into this abyss. Why were they here? What did all of this mean? "Welcome to your legacy," the voice had said, but it felt less like an invitation and more like a warning. Evie pushed forward, clinging to the desperate flicker of hope that she might find some truth, some clarity. Suddenly, the world began to tear apart around them. The colors brightened, shifted violently, then shattered like glass, splattering vision across the walls. Evie gasped, and Leo clutched her arm so hard she felt the bones might crack. "What's happening?" he whispered, panic fluttering in his eyes. "Hold on," Jackson's voice cut through the chaotic din, but it was already too late. A blinding flash erupted from the mirrored woman. No, Evie's mother, and everything changed in an instant. The moment fractured, splitting reality itself, and Evie found herself standing in a vast, dark space. The floor seemed to pulse beneath her feet like a heartbeat, and the air was thick, electric with energy. This is a different realm. Leo's voice trembled, echoing in the emptiness around them. Then, piercing the silence, a new shape emerged. It glided forward, dark and ethereal. An immense, shadowy figure loomed before them. Evie squinted, heart racing, as recognition shot through her. It was another Evie. Well, the shadow version smirked, eyes glimmering with mischief. Look who we have here. The clueless twins and the scattered remnants of what you thought was family. How quaint. Who are you? Evie's voice quaked, uncertainty swirling in her gut. Self-proclaimed family. I'm the one who's always been here. You just never saw me. The truth is, I've always been watching. Her smile twisted into something cold. I was kept hidden away like a dirty little secret, just as destined as you. Evie tried to process this, but the revelation felt like an anchor pulling her deeper. You can't possibly be real. Oh, but I am. The shadow stepped closer, and the air crackled ominously. Born from the same lies, the same blood, but I am the power she feared. I am the darkness she wanted to keep away from you, the shadow Evie hissed, eyes smoldering. Are you saying? Leo stammered, voice breaking, heart racing faster than ever. Yes, every time your mother tried to protect you, she only fed me. I grew stronger in the depths of her fear. Evie's chest tightened, confusion morphing into dread. Everything she thought she knew, every cherished memory, every love they shared, felt like a cruel joke. But I don't understand. Why? Why are you here? Because it's time for you to choose which part of you will thrive. The shadow laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the void. Will you embrace the darkness or remain blissfully ignorant? In that moment, the ground shook violently, and the space around them began to warp and ripple. Everything felt precarious, balanced on a razor's edge. Clara cried out, her voice strained with fear, but Evie could barely grasp it. Then, like a storm unrelenting, the shadows gathered and shapes began to materialize. Each one was tied to her past, to her mother's choices, friends, enemies, even lost opportunities. They lunged forward, each scream a haunting reminder of the tangled web they'd woven. Evie staggered back, horrified as she felt the weight of their reality folding in on itself. Everything was an illusion, but within that illusion lay a truth so profound it made her head spin. What had they unleashed? The ghosts of their past were here, demanding acknowledgement. Embrace your fate, the shadow Evie cried, laughter bouncing off the collapsing walls. Join the family business. But would she? With a pounding heart, mind racing, Evie glanced at Leo, whose face mirrored her uncertainty. Would they step into the darkness, or fight against it? In that split second, everything shifted again. The air chilled, a ferocious wind howled through the chaos, and a blinding light shot toward them, moving faster than their panic. Could they escape, or was it already too late? And then the ultimate question. What if the true monster was herself? The chaos seemed endless, and each heartbeat echoed louder as they faced the truth. The past wasn't just haunting them. It was alive, and now it was coming for them. Would they survive what was unfolding, or become part of the nightmare? The choice loomed larger than fear itself. The echoes hadn't stopped. The storm had just begun. As the ground trembled with uncertainty, Evie focused on the shadow version of herself, the embodiment of everything she feared. The fear clawed at her, rising in her throat like bile. She thought she understood her world, but now, in this abyss of shadows and whispers, everything felt like quicksand, dragging her deeper into confusion. Join the family business, the shadow hissed, eyes gleaming with dark delight. No, Evie shouted back, urgency pouring from her heart. She looked to Leo, who stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief, as if every word from the shadow's mouth was a nail driving into their past. But then came a different sound, a crack of thunder, rolling through the swirling shadows like a storm breaking. And before they could react, something exploded from the darkness. a burst of brilliant white light sweeping through them, an energy that felt alive. "What?" Leo began, but his voice was swallowed by the roar of the light. The world shifted again. The shadows fractured like glass, scattering into tiny points of darkness. And when the blinding glare finally faded, they found themselves in a completely different space. Sunlight poured in through large open windows. It was a stark contrast to the chaos they'd just escaped. They stood in a cozy living room, familiar and warm. Photos of their family hung on the walls, smiling faces, memories of love and laughter. "What just happened?" Evie whispered, bewildered. "Are we home?" Leo asked slowly, glancing around in the familiar surroundings. But something felt off. Something was wrong. "Mom?" Evie called, her voice small. And then a figure emerged from the hallway. Tall, beautiful, glowing with warmth. It was their mother, her smile radiant, arms open wide, just like they remembered from childhood. "Evie, Leo, thank goodness you're here," she exclaimed joyfully. "Mom," they cried in unison, a flood of relief washing over them. They rushed forward to embrace her. But just as they neared, an unsettling whisper filled the room, familiar yet strange. "Surprise!" Evie jolted back, disconnecting from her mother just as she turned. The confidence in her mother's smile morphed, darkness flickering in the depths of her eyes. "Wait, what?" Leo stammered, confusion scrambling his words. "Mom, what's happening?" Evie demanded, heart racing. Then, in an instant, the warmth in her mother's eyes turned cold. "I've been waiting for this moment," she said, the sweetness of her voice replaced with something twisted and sharp. "You've grown strong, just like I knew you would." "Strong? What are you talking about?" Evie's voice trembled, confusion tightening her throat. But then it came, rolling over them like the tide, a flood of memories, piecing together the truth. "You always pushed us to be better, but why?" Evie stared into her mother's eyes. "What were you hiding?" Their mother chuckled lightly, a haunting sound. "I didn't just want power for you, dears. I wanted control." "What? No!" Leo shouted, stepping back as if he'd been physically struck. Suddenly, the illusion shattered. The room flickered, shadows lunging forward. The comforting light melted away, revealing the eerie chaos they had escaped. "I created this." Their mother's voice echoed as she morphed into the shadow, the darkness revealing its true form. Evie's heart sank. You're the monster?" "Not just a monster. Your lineage is a legacy of power." The shadow twisted with a sinister grin. "You were never supposed to break free. You were always meant to become part of me." The realization crashed over them like a wave. Everything had been orchestrated. Their mother's love, manipulation. The secrets, seduction. "No," Evie screamed, tears blurring her vision. "We are not part of this nightmare." The shadows surged, closing in on them, as if reclaiming what they had set free. "Choose wisely," the shadow warned again, the energy pulsing with menace. "The truth is far more tangled than you know." Evie felt the weight of legacy crushing down. Breathless with horror, she tightened her grip on Leo's hand. "What can we do?" But the darkness began to swallow them, and as the shadows encircled, they both realized this fight was about more than survival. It was about identity, choice, and an inheritance that threatened to consume them whole. In that surge of chaos, with their mother's twisted legacy pressing down, a new question emerged, echoing louder than fear. Are we who we thought we were, or something far more sinister? And in that moment, hope flickered dimly against the oncoming dark as they braced for the fight of their lives. The chaos of the moment swirled around Evie like a cyclone, shadows closing in, darkness promising secrets and pain. Her heart raced as she faced her mother. No, the shadow version of her mother. Eyes blazing with a malicious spark. "You were meant to become part of me," the shadow hissed, the very air thick with deceit. Evie stood frozen, the weight of her past unbearable. "No, we won't become like you," she shouted, desperation fueling her voice. Then a flicker, a pulse of energy surged from somewhere deep within, an undeniable feeling that raced through her. Alongside Leo, they both took a step back as waves of urgency crackled in the air, intertwining with the pulse of the shadows. It felt like destiny demanding attention. Suddenly, everything erupted. A blinding flash sliced through the darkness, illuminating the room, casting shadows long and sharp. Instead of fleeing, Evie and Leo found themselves propelled forward, drawn into the light like moths. A cold breath swept through, and everything shattered once more, exploding into a kaleidoscope of images and voices. Memories churned, laughter, cries, echoes of love lost. Amidst it all, something solid took shape, figures emerging from the light, vivid and alive. Familiar faces, their family gathered around in a circle, but not just any family. Figures Evie and Leo had lost long ago. Their grandparents, smiling with tender warmth. "Welcome back, my loves." Their grandmother's voice rang out, soothing yet commanding. What is happening?" Evie cried, heart pounding. Joy battled against disbelief. "Time is intertwined," their grandfather said. Stepping forward, wisdom etched in his face. "Your legacy runs deeper than you know. It's not just about your mother." The shadows flickered, battling against this sudden light. The darkness writhed, angry at the sudden disruption. "No," the shadow wrenched, voice shrieking, cracking the air with its rage. "You think they can save you?" "I'm not afraid of you," Evie shouted, stepping toward her family, newfound determination pulsing within her. But then the ground trembled beneath them, the shadows swirling into a chaotic storm. The faces around her, the warmth fading. They reached out, but she felt the connection slip. "Run," her grandmother urged, panic flashing in her eyes. But Evie realized something in that moment. Their family connections weren't just about ties of blood. They were about choice, about standing against the darkness, free from the manipulation. In a heartbeat, the shadow lunged. The energy shifted, a moment where time hung suspended. Evie felt her muscles clench. This wasn't just a confrontation with the darkness. It was a confrontation with destiny itself. That's when I realized. The shadows snarled, eyes flashing with fury. "You were never meant to be just children. You are the culmination of our greatest fears and our darkest desires." As the shadow surged toward them, in that chaos a figure broke through the storm. Clara, trembling but resolute. "No, this ends now." The strength in her voice reverberated. It felt like armor against the oncoming storm. But then, something almost imperceptible happened. A twist in the fabric of reality. Clara's face shifted, flickering with an unsettling familiarity. It wasn't just Clara anymore. "I've been with you all this time." Her voice morphed, tones weaving together. "Because I'm the one who kept the biggest secret of all." Evie stumbled back, breath caught in her throat. "What? No, you can't mean." But before she could finish, the darkness enveloped Clara, consuming her. Shadows flickered back, swirling, their whispers turning into a menacing chant. Clara's true nature erupted, revealing layers of deceit wrapped in love. "You thought I was here to protect you, but I'm part of this legacy. You must choose, embrace it, or lose everything." Evie's head spun, the weight of betrayal crashing down. "Clara, no!" But the shadows closed in, swallowing her words as the reality of her betrayal tore through the illusion. The shadow laughed, echoing, triumphant. "Now we see what you truly are." Waves of panic rushed through Evie's chest. The truth was spiraling deeper into chaos, and in that moment she understood. Nothing was as it seemed. Clara, their loyal guardian, had hidden the darkest secrets. The edges of the night began to crumble as darkness threatened to boil over. With semi-dark eyes locked onto her, Evie faced the broken remnants of her family, torn between their past and someone's future they never wanted. Could they fight the darkness within, or would they drown beneath the weight of betrayal? The questions hung in the air, a siren wailing as they prepared for a confrontation that would forever change them. What lay ahead? Only shadows knew. Evie stood firm, her heart racing as shadows melded into a swirling tempest around them. Clara's betrayal hung thick in the air, a suffocating weight. She could feel the darkness pressing in, but then a fierce determination surged through her veins. She had more to fight for than just her life. "We are not who you think we are," Evie shouted, her voice strong, cutting through the chaos. The shadow of her mother hesitated, eyes flickering with confusion. And in that moment, Evie seized the opportunity. This isn't just about bloodlines. It's about choice. We've twisted love into something vile for too long. Every word ignited the fear in her heart, but it also sparked something else. Courage. "Together," Leo shouted, stepping forward beside her. "We won't let you take us." The moment they stood united, a radiant light sprang from their hands, intertwining like vines, illuminating the darkness. The shadows shrieked, twisting back, confronted by the purity of their resolve. "No," the shadow roared, furious and desperate. "You think you can defy your legacy?" Evie felt the power building, ancestors surrounding them, drawn by the light. The love they had lost transformed into strength. "This ends now," she screamed, focusing every ounce of her being into the brightness that swirled in the air. At that moment, shadows recoiled as Clara's voice broke through the storm, tinged with remorse. "Evie, Leo, you must remember, love can heal, but it can also hurt. You have the power to rewrite your story." "Rewrite our story?" Evie's voice trembled, realization striking her hard. This wasn't just a battle with the shadow. It was a confrontation with everything their family had become. With a glaring pulse, the light flared brightly. The shadow shrieked, writhing. Clara stepped back, her true form fluctuating between shadow and light, between protector and betrayer. "You don't understand what you unleash," the shadow roared. But Evie felt clarity washing over her. "We understand more than you think," she replied, and in that moment, they unleashed the power of their bonded lineage, the truth of their family's love. The beam surged forth, spiraling toward the shadow. It shrieked, blasted back, and with a heart-stopping explosion of energy, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. The echoes of despair dissipated, parting like mist beneath the morning sun. The world swirled back to vibrant reality. Colors flooded around them, the living room, the sunlight breaking through the windows. Evie gasped, heartbeat settling. "Is it over?" Leo whispered, eyes wide. But then Clara stepped forward, her face lined with tears. "I'm sorry." Her voice was soft, choked with regret. "I wanted to protect you both, from the darkness and from the legacy that haunts us. But I see now." Her gaze turned resolute. "You are not just my charges. You are my family." Evie, heart full but aching, stepped toward Clara. "Bridging the gap. We all have our scars, but together we can create a future. A real future." Just then, the door opened, and Jackson stood there, eyes wide with hope. "Is it done?" "Yes," Leo breathed out, turning to embrace his sister. "We fought back. But it could be different now," Evie added, holding Clara's hand. "We can carve out new paths." The power within them felt free. They had saved themselves, not just from a shadow, but from the weight of untold expectations. They were free to redefine what family truly meant. As the sun set outside, casting golden rays across the room, Evie felt a flicker of hope dancing within, a promise of love, resilience, and unity. Together, they looked forward, knowing that while the shadows of their past could linger, the light of their choice would always break through. "Here's to new beginnings," Jackson said softly, voice steady with resolve. Together, they echoed, hearts intertwined. And with that feeling of warmth enveloping them, they knew it was indeed a farewell to what had been, a true embrace of hope and the promise of a brighter future. Now, it's time to take action. You have to subscribe right now to the channel so you don't miss any of the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button for support and to feed the algorithm right now. Flood the comments section below with your thoughts and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. This is the moment to show your support. Your engagement means the world. Let's keep this amazing community growing together.